Emmy's is the best. Good evening. This is the Town of Hollis Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, June 11th. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We'll start the meeting tonight with a roll call from my right to left.
It's you. Nick.
Tom Wachowski.
Heather Sullivan.
Greg McPherson.
Danielle Bradbury.
Butch Gannett. First item, we have a correspondence from the Saco River Corridor Committee. Anybody want to read or give a synopsis of this? I'll quickly.
Two after the fact permits.
Yeah, so basically we have a couple after the fact permits. One's for an accessory structure no closer than 20 feet from normal high water line at 209 River Road. Another is after the fact permit to install a gravel driveway, mailbox, utility pole, and trench to conduit, earth moving, and improving existing agriculture entrances no closer than 400 feet from normal high water line.
You want to just summarize what an after-the-fact permit is real quick for anybody that doesn't understand?
Yeah, so an after-the-fact permit, great point, Tom, is a permit that you get after you do the work. So these residents or whoever had the property did some work and then had to get a permit once it was complete. That is not the recommended course of action. We recommend everybody get permits prior to commencing work.
But it shows that there is a solution for doing it after the fact.
And these are permits with Saco River Corridor Commission. These are not building permits with the town of Hollis.
Correct.
Correct. All right. Next item on our agenda this evening, reports, excuse me, select board, CEO, committees. Anybody on Zoom with a report? Hearing none. Next item, we'll review the meeting minutes of January 2nd and February 12th. These were all in your email in the past week or so. And they have them in front of you as well. I see a couple clerical errors on both with a misspelling of my name on members present, but it seems to be correct in the rest of the minutes.
MCPHERSON.
Two G's.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
That's
we'll
too
have,
many Gs.
Yeah, we'll have Ashley fix that, our planning board admin.
Yeah. So after review, looking for a motion regarding the January 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Any other further comments on this? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed? Hearing none. Minutes approved with edits. Again, looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 12th, 2025 with one clerical edit.
So moved.
Second, looking for a second.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Any other further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? Hearing none.
I abstained because I wasn't here.
Thank you, Butch. Butch,
Said you were.
so let it be
What was that,
known-
Butch?
Butch is abstained. He was not here for that meeting.
Thank you.
So, Ashley, when you look at this recording later, please note that it was 4 ayes. Butch and myself abstained.
I also noticed Heidi Bernier's name is on the list of members. And on both of them, I'm not sure.
Was she here as secretary at those days, though?
But she's not a planning board member.
Oh, that is correct.
I wasn't here for either of them either, actually, now that I look at that. I just noticed it,
chip.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Just a reminder, if you're not here for the meeting, please abstain.
And it doesn't look like it.
So,
All right.
next item on the agenda is old business, which we have none, which leads us into new business. First item tonight, we have a surrender of a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility located at 660 Cape Road. The conditional use holder will be Tom Witkowski.
Witkowski.
Excuse, doesn't he have to excuse himself or something? Doesn't he have to say?
If you could please introduce yourself as a resident.
Of course. Tom Witkowski, resident, Hollis, Maine. I'm here tonight to voluntarily surrender a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility that I was going to start and then didn't. So, long story short, I'm starting a food truck that does amazing pizza at 660 Cape Road, and that put my uses for the property over the allowable limit, according to Code Enforcement Office. So their solution was to voluntarily turn in one of my conditional use permits. Full transparency, I completely disagree with the decision, but it was in the best interest to move things forward, to agree with what Code Enforcement said, and it gives me a zero bias to be able to correct ordinance or promote corrections within the ordinance without any sort of advantageous effect on my business personally. So once this permit is surrendered voluntarily, Code Enforcement will be able to issue the permitted use permit for my food truck, and it will be all said and done. So that, like I said, I can both morally and ethically, with integrity, argue in favor of changes that would make it so that other small businesses don't get negatively affected the same way that my small business has by overregulation that largely just, again, affects small businesses. So that's why we're here tonight, to voluntarily surrender that conditional use permit. And there wasn't anything, again, I spoke with Code Enforcement Office for a while about it, and we agreed that there was no formal way to do it in the ordinance. There was no direction or anything like that. So we thought it was the best, again, in transparency, to do it the same way that you were issued the permit, which is in front of the planning board. And I agree with that.
Thank you, Tom. We do have an email here in front of everybody. I'll just read this really quickly. This is from Hollis Tommy's Pizza. I'm requesting that my conditional use permit for my self-storage facility located at 660 Cape Road, Hollis, Maine, be voluntarily surrendered so that it will free up road frontage for my permitted use food truck permit located at the same address. Liberty and justice for all, Tom Witkowski.
Well said.
I don't think we need to do anything, right?
So we need to...
Should you vote?
Yes.
I move we accept this
Second.
voluntary,
Okay, any discussion? We will, if approved, we will need to record this on the findings of fact. So there is future record of this. Are you taking notes, Heather, for that?
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Any other further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 yeah.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passed. The conditional use permit at 660 Cape Road for a self-storage facility has officially been surrendered. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next item on the agenda, annually, the planning board is required to nominate a chair and vice chair. We would like to do that at this time. I think,
I'll nominate Greg as the chair for another year.
Second.
any discussion or other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All those opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Next, we'll be looking for a nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Heather Sullivan for vice chair for the next year.
I'll second that.
Second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, Obama?
All those opposed? Hearing none, so moved. I was tempted to vote no on myself.
I almost did too.
I did yesterday.
I did want to just real quick go over this, planning board members.
That was, yes.
It's not formally on the agenda, but I thought timing was good.
Shoot, it'd be, are you gonna make a motion to add this to the agenda?
No.
Nope.
Perfect.
So in front of you, you have the list, the current list of planning board members. I want to, this is like formal notification to the select board that they need to work with Danielle to determine if Danielle will come back for a full 3-year term. We hope you will.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome.
So you took over Seth Davis's term, which ended 6/30/2025. So you didn't start a full term, you took over the empty seat, so.
I wanted to fill this chart in a little bit better. Oh, so, and they also need to reach out to Dawn and see if Dawn wants to continue as our alternate.
Correct. Dawn Roth, if you're listening or watching later at date, your current term also ends 6/30/2025 as an alternate.
And I just wanted to fill in, Tommy, do you remember when you got appointed first time? What year?
Oh my goodness. Whatever 21, I think? No. Whatever the math is for, I'm out in 26, or up for renewal in 26.
Yeah, so
So 20?
23 to 26, and then that would have been
20.
20 to 23.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about, I guess I could have done that same thing with you, Greg. Same deal.
Yeah, Tom, you were earlier than 21.
Yeah, he was 2020,
Okay.
and you were 2020.
Yeah, Tom was here prior to myself.
Oh yeah, you didn't do he wasn't, I don't think Greg was here before that. I thought you filled in for.
Oh, did you come in for someone?
2021, I believe.
Like I said, I think he was in.
Oh, you know who he came in for? Jess.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yep.
Jess was here when I was here.
Oh, she was?
Yes.
There,
For,
there was
Uh-huh.
there was a space when, what's his name left? Yep. God, I feel bad.
Peter.
Pete.
no,
Pete.
Peter was here when I was here.
Pete was here when you were here?
Yes.
Pete's awesome too. God, I miss that
All right,
guy.
I will, I'll look into it.
I looked it up. I thought
yeah,
it was
we-
2021.
20, okay, so I'm good with just a year. And you, probably, something will trigger for one of us.
Yeah.
Awesome, and I don't know when Don came in. I know he came in after I did, but I'm not sure when. But I'm not as concerned about that one.
Perfect.
You ought to be able to get dates from the
You'd think so.
Martha.
On
Yeah.
the what?
From Martha.
Yes, this actually came from Martha.
So I think she was missing a couple dates.
She had a few things that I needed to clarify for her. She thought that we had rolling terms. Yeah, but written in the ordinance like the select board does, but we do not have that. Most of us came after a long gap. That there was an actual gap, or filling in for someone. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense to worry about doing the rolling.
Yep. Apologies.
You want me to do the next one too?
Yeah, next item on the agenda, the ordinance review, planning and updates. This kind of falls under that whole under umbrella.
So I wanted to give everybody on the board and the public an update on what is going on with the planning board ordinance, with the zoning ordinances that we proposed for the warrant article for June that did not make it to the warrant article in June. I have asked Mary, on the 30th to please provide us with more details on why our ordinance changes did not make it onto the ballot. And I provided her with proof of the public hearings, the two required public hearings that we had, and proof of proper notice being put in the newspaper and posted. I also let her know that the floodplain management and affordable housing developments, which, by the way, do we know how those?
Everything was yes.
Okay,
Everything
so
but
the floodplain management, the floodplain management and the affordable housing developments ordinance changes that we proposed, those made it onto the ballot and they passed. Then I did ask how the select board makes or what format the select board uses to make the decision on whether to include or refuse something that is sent up to them by one of 3 committees or boards that the town has. I followed up with her this morning, asking if maybe they had a chance to review and give us a response. I got a response back this afternoon letting me know that they have not had time to do such because they are using up their vacation time before they lose it. So, that being said, we have to make some decisions on what we're gonna do between now and, I would say, September, October. They'll be somewhere in there. We'll have to have them done, well before the election.
Yep.
But what ordinance changes or things that we want to work on during this next half of the year?
So I had, sorry to interject. I did have a discussion with Rob Hanson, our road commissioner, this evening,
Ooh.
or actually today, and he requested that we look at the road performance standards in the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations and make them similar.
Yeah.
He stated some specific issues that he has.
If he has them, he probably has them in writing.
I'll work with.
Yeah.
I can work on that, and then I kind of gave Rob the 2 options, and we thought it was best that the board kind of puts the ordinance in, bring Rob in for a workshop, hash it out, and then go in that direction.
Do you know if Shoreland also has road standards?
I don't
check.
believe so.
I'll check.
There's just a lot of gray area in the zoning ordinance that
It's all over our zoning ordinances.
he would like some concrete ground to stand on for some driveway permits.
So I think that what I was getting to.
Apologies.
That's okay. No, I'm glad that you mentioned it. I personally, I want an answer. I do not want to work on any more edits to the zoning ordinance until we get an answer as to why the edits that we worked on for 6 months, or maybe not that long, but it feels like I'm pretty close. Why those were not included on the ballot and how we can restructure, or I don't know what it is, to ensure that that doesn't happen again. I, like most of us, do not like to do work with no result. I think that when we go to the effort of rewriting, reviewing, understanding, holding public hearings, asking for input, editing, drafting, sending it out to sending it out to the lawyer, sending it out to the planning consultants, getting it back, assimilating what they say, making decisions. I feel that not including it on the warrant without frankly, a legal reason not to, it just burns me. And I really don't want to work on zoning ordinances right now until we get that straightened out. But there are other pieces I think that we need to take a look at. You guys should have in your packet a
I think you got
proposed.
somebody on Zoom, maybe.
What's that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry, I'm running your meeting.
No, we have a comment from Zoom that we'll take.
Yes, hi, this is Linda. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Linda.
Hi, my name's Linda Morton-Hebert. I'm a citizen of Hollis. Heather, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that I appreciate all the volunteer work that everyone there does, and it's really disheartening to see that undermined. So I just wanted to pipe up and say that I wholeheartedly agree with you, Heather.
I really appreciate that, Linda. I think people don't understand the amount of time that someone has to put into ordinance writing work unless you've done it. And it is not fun for most people, and it's really hard. And that is all uncompensated planning board time where I don't even get the opportunity to be on TV. So.
Absolutely. And I hear you. I hope other people hear you too.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So do you think that, I did do some work through the planning board ordinance, so that's the ordinance that governs what we are doing and how we're structured. We had talked a little bit about maybe making the planning board smaller. That wouldn't mean anybody would be kicked off the planning board. It would just mean that we would stay our size, and if someone resigned, then we wouldn't replace them until we got down to I just went down to 5. We struggle to have volunteers in this town, and I don't see why we would need 7. Many local municipalities near us are much smaller than us. And there's other things in there that we can talk about, but I noticed that the ordinance didn't do a great job of describing what it is that we actually do. In any detail. It just says, do whatever it says in the zoning ordinances. I think there's an opportunity for us to strengthen a little bit some of the language in there, so that right now I believe that we can just be ceremoniously dumped with a unanimous vote by the select board. I think that should, in the state statutes, indicates that should include a public hearing or a hearing, I don't know if it is public, notice, and none of that stuff has happened with the few people that I am aware of that the select board chose to remove. So I think we can strengthen that up a little bit. I'd love to focus on that and get that out of the way. Then I also think
Do you
that...
think it's best to have this in a workshop first and then bring it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I also think that our, since we've had a couple subdivisions come through, I've been putting a bit of energy into the subdivision regulations. I think those need some alignment, some cleanup, maybe have some discussions about how we accomplish what we do. Making sure that there's proper notice, enough opportunity for public comment. That would be something we'd want to get public comment on. So I think that's an area we could focus on instead of zoning ordinances. Butch brought forth a growth ordinance proposal last spring, or I think it might have even been winter. I think we need to take a look at that. I will say, without the comprehensive plan being done, the growth ordinance has to be very tied to comprehensive plan. The state requires it if you're going to have a growth restriction or a growth limitation. So I think we'll probably have to put a little bit of time into that to make sure that it is fully aligned with the state law.
Do we have any idea of when the comp plan will be completed? We haven't seen a draft.
We haven't seen a draft, and I think they wanted it to be completed
Still-
for November.
You're the
Working
committee,
on
correct, Butch?
chapters 3 and 4 and 5.
Out of,
8, 9.
I don't know, maybe 5, maybe 7. I don't know how many chapters there are.
okay,
The plan is to have it ready for the November.
okay. So maybe,
So,
So we'll try to align. I think seeing a draft of something like that would give us enough direction to know whether or not something in a growth ordinance might kind of go against somehow.
I guess, what if the comp plan was not approved by the voters?
I mean, then the current comp plan still stands. And so, I mean, I guess,
Just,
I think that's something we have to look at maybe in tandem. But when we have a little more, like I said, the draft, because usually a draft might change, but it doesn't generally shift bigger concepts. Like, do we want to have residential growth or not?
so do we want?
What do you think, Butch?
Are we comfortable running a growth plan off a draft comp plan and having them both on the November ballot at the same time? I guess is the question.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know if it'll be a draft comp plan when it goes before the voters.
Right.
Well, it will be until it's approved,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So are we okay with having a draft growth plan that we reference or are building this off of?
Well, the comprehensive plan does recommend that we have a growth ordinance.
Okay. Does our current though? I'm just playing out worst case scenario here. New comp plan doesn't get voted in. We're running on our current comp plan. Does that one also have a growth ordinance?
I don't know.
So I guess that would be a question, just to cross our T's and dot our
Yeah,
I's.
yeah.
It promotes growth. So the couple meetings I sat in on for the comp plan committee was, I didn't see a lot of stuff that's going to be changed besides the statistics and numbers and stuff like that. I don't see any huge drastic changes coming from the comp plan. So again, my opinion, I think it would be safe if we're basing it off the current comp plan. I think you'd be okay. Obviously, double check it, but again, I only sat in for a few meetings and saw that Butch was there, so I knew we were in good hands. It's really what it came down to,
Well,
and that's the truth.
It's
So,
basically, it starts out as a review of the comp plan.
yeah,
You know, somebody decided we ought to be going in this direction. So what have we done to get in that direction? Who's responsible, and so forth and so on. And it really appears that a whole lot of stuff wasn't paid much attention to.
yep,
Approved the comp plan, stuck it on a shelf, went about our business.
yep.
Which is not the way it should work. I mean, it's a comp plan.
Should be working
How
towards
do we
it.
want to go? Same as, we're a planning board, we're not an approval board, we're a planning board to look at directions the town should be taking or going in and what we want, you know, do we want where you can shake hands from one house to another, or do we want to control that or whatever? So,
I agree, Butch.
you know, and what you said, we need to look at a ordinance, a planning board ordinance. And we need to make sure that that's what we want, and that's the way we want to work.
I think too, Butch, you know, like in support of that, there should be some not checks and balances, but, you know, does the comprehensive plan get discussed in the annual report, in the town's annual report? Is there anything in there that is like a report on how we're getting towards our comprehensive plan?
I don't recall ever seeing anything like that.
I think
okay?
that would
But I
be
mean,
valuable.
it should be looked at every year.
Yes. Yep,
Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing?
yep.
Or what the town wants us, what direction the town wants to go.
Well, I think it also helps us all when we're thinking about things. So the current comp plan, I've read it a couple times, once, twice, maybe. I've looked for specific things in it when I needed to. But if we were talking about it more as our board, as the town in general, more people would know what was on that plan. More people would be holding us and others responsible. And there would be maybe a better understanding of some of the decisions or some of the reasons why certain decisions are made, which would reduce dissatisfaction. So I'm all for it. I say, you know, the fact that we have this, I think, you know, maybe we should ask someone from the comprehensive plan committee to come and give us a bigger update. I mean, if you want to do it, Butch, but, you know, an actual formal, like, hey, here's what we've done so far, here's the direction we're going.
Yeah. I can provide a report for you next meeting.
That'd be great.
Awesome, thank you, Butch.
So,
So, but I do want to get that growth ordinance. Butch has been super patient in waiting for us to get through some of the other stuff we had to get through.
yeah, I think we're, I wanna,
So I think the road commissioners items, I think we can do some of that.
that's kind of like a subdivision slash ordinance
Slash-
review.
Yeah, slash zoning. So I, for our road commissioner, I'd be willing to look at, we were looking at performance standards next. That was our next step anyway. But I'd be willing to look at the road-related ones
Yeah.
in order to give him, or in order to align things up.
I think that'd be super helpful for him.
But I'm not
Perfect.
going back on that.
Butch, when you give that summary of the comprehensive board, would you be able to also kind of say, point out, like, here's how some of these things change from the prior comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I will.
If at all, if at all.
I'll try
if
to
it's
tell
changing.
how the town has grown, because there's figures in there that will support that, and so forth, so I will.
I'm just, I guess when hearing about, what the comprehensive plan is, my biggest curiosity would be, are we, becoming more strict in some areas or less strict in some areas, and what areas are those? More than anything else, in my opinion, that's what I would wanna know.
Which
So
is
that-
there an appetite of the comprehensive plan committee to shorten the list of initiatives? I think that's one of the things that maybe happened, was
Yeah,
that there were
there's-
too many.
There's sections called strategies and goals,
Yep,
and we're going through and taking some of them out.
yep,
For instance, one of the strategies was new town hall.
yep, great,
One of the strategies was a growth ordinance.
yep,
Things like that. So we're paring it down, okay? But at the same time, might come up with new things. to add in
Absolutely.
there, okay?
It
Or
just-
look at things a little differently.
and something that was on the plan however many years ago it was that we last did it, that isn't automatically making the plan this time. If things have changed in some way,
Right.
then you guys would
There might not be a
pull.
requirement
Yep,
for it anymore.
yep, got it,
know?
yep, great.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So, one thing we need to address,
Should we do these one by one, or try to attack them,
so I think all these things that we're discussing I think we should probably start in workshop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm just saying, should we do them, should we have an order of operation
We can discuss that in workshop.
in workshop? Okay,
Before
got
we
it.
start a workshop, I'd like to ask that we add
It's not
ADUs
tonight.
as well.
It's not tonight.
ADUs,
Yeah, we talked about it several times, but it kind of kept coming to a place where it was, all right, we've got a lot to go over, and prioritizing that kind of went down on the list, and we came to a
is this about the owner occupied?
owner occupied. And honestly, so many months ago, we were saying, hey, let's just drop this and move on. Then I'd reread it and find the other stuff that I wanted to read too.
So that's part of the zoning ordinance, so I would say that goes on the back burner while we get these other things knocked out, because,
So we want to figure out why we weren't allowed to have proposed ordinance changes on the ballot. Once we can
Right.
figure that out, then we can,
so not back burner, but lower on the list.
yeah, 100%.
Same as, same as what we, where we were going to move into performance standards. I'm suggesting that we don't do that yet until we figure out what we're gonna do about the lack of changes that we all very well pushed for. Could have had 6 months of,
Hate to throw
Practice.
hate to throw good money after bad.
Right.
So I guess,
And is the current, so voted yes for the current zoning that the select board chose to put out.
yeah,
Is that legally out? Did they do 2 public hearings to make that?
they did.
They did?
so there's there was not 2 public hearings within 30 and 60 days by the planning board.
Yes, that's
Before the
correct.
vote.
No, no less than 30 and 60.
Within 30 and
Yeah.
60 days.
Yeah.
Which there were not.
So the current zoning ordinance that was just voted in is also not
We,
like a.
yeah, we've
change.
never, I can't remember a time that we even considered that timing. We always did 2 public hearings.
Right.
I don't recall us considering that particular timing, and it doesn't make sense because,
It doesn't make sense, it's still the ordinance, but we were following the guidance of the questions we were asked and when to hold public hearings.
And I'm not talking about our public hearings. I'm talking about after ours got thrown in the trash and the select board said, "Here's my zoning ordinance I'm going to put on the warrant." They held one public hearing, kind of. We made it into a public hearing about it. Did they have a second public hearing to make that
yeah.
legitimate zoning
yeah,
ordinance?
they did.
But if you read the zoning ordinance, it's a public hearing zoning ordinance. It is not a select board zoning ordinance. I'm sorry, it is a public.
Planning board. Part of the
Excuse
planning
me.
board
It
ordinance.
is a planning
I
board
would-
public hearing.
I think I crossed out that, I changed it in my proposed draft, so that now it's just 2 public hearings. Then the timing of them is not relevant.
Had our changes gone on the warrant, in the future, the public hearings that the select board holds would account for those. But here nor there. Anyway, let's not beat a drum into the ground here.
Also,
so-
I do think we need to, go ahead. I wanted to give people an update on clusters.
That's
and-
where I was going.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the official election results came out this afternoon, and Article 19, I believe, was a yes vote, which was an amendment to is the town in favor for an amendment to the zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinance, not zoning ordinance, I apologize, there's a very big difference, because the zoning ordinances have a set of rules that we need to change them by, and then these subdivision regulations have a separate rules. I was doing some research this afternoon as well, and these subdivision regulations are enacted by
Us,
the planning board
after public.
after a public hearing. And then they shall be amended in the same manner. So, just because it was on the warrant does not immediately put that into effect. According to the state statute 4403, that is referenced in the subdivision regulation. So, that does not go in effect until after we have a hearing on it.
So we have to draft the removal.
We have to draft removal, which was incompletely done in the warrant, I believe. I think there was a few things that were missing. That weren't.
I think we gotta make sure that it's not referenced in other
There is,
ordinances. Yeah.
it is referenced otherwhere. It's kind of one of my gripes with it. It wasn't completely removed, but anyway. Once we finish that, we can then have a hearing on it to legally remove it.
Is it inappropriate for us to do additional changes to subdivision regulations at the same time and then hearing it, or hearing it? Oh, I guess it doesn't matter because we don't have to get it on the ballot. So we
So
could
I think it
do
would be a
adopt it.
disinterest to the voters' will to wait to do more changes.
Mhm.
As much I think it would be great to be efficient and make one change, whereas it's only a public hearing that needs to be held. I don't think it's overly burdensome to have 2 if we want to make some additional changes after the fact.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm cool with that.
I think time is of the essence on this item. Just, it is the voters' will.
You got it.
If anybody disagrees with me, feel free to speak up. All right. So that, unless anybody else has anything regarding ordinance review and planning updates. We'll get it
Okay.
amended.
All right.
So hearing, Butch?
I think we need to get back what we turned in.
We still have copies.
Okay.
Yeah. If you need another copy. You talking the zoning ordinance? Yep.
Yeah. We need to get back what we turned in and if there's problems with it, fix it, okay? And I'm not saying just because the selectmen don't wanna do it, I'm saying, we got till November anyway.
I'm gonna if there isn't a good reason, I'm gonna push for a special election.
Very costly to the town,
Then they'll remember that they did it.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, whatever.
I mean, it's something we would have to discuss as a board, and it would only, that's why I'm looking for answers. Because I think that there is an opportunity so is it more costly to the town to not have new businesses that could have opened because we didn't get the planning board changes done? Or is it more costly to the town to hold a special election how many people showed up at the warrant? How many votes?
700 or so?
700. So costly, yes, maybe couldn't we do it as a town meeting where we hand vote? That's not as costly. I don't know. There's things to look into, but
Okay,
just choosing not to accept ordinance changes from the board that is responsible for zoning ordinances.
Just some proposed ordinance changes, not.
Yeah.
It would be different if none of them from the planning board made it onto the ballot. I would be more okay with it ethically if none of the planning board changes that we ever discussed made it on the ballot. That would be acceptable. Still unacceptable, but more acceptable than this. So for them to pick and choose which ones they want and which they don't want without any reason.
Well,
And
we
reasons
were
that fell
given
apart.
nothing.
Right.
We have been giving, so there was no memo, so when the cannabis business ordinance, when they decided not to put that on the warrant, we got a memo from all 3 select board members, signed by
Right.
all 3, explaining why they weren't going to put that on the ballot. That would have been great. I didn't get a phone call telling me that they weren't gonna move forward with it. I found out when the ballot was printed, too late. Too late to even have the discussion or clarify what may possibly be just an error.
Right.
Because what I'm hearing is that, what I provided was evidence that we did all the steps that we were required to do. So there's no good reason to not put it on the warrant. Except that somebody doesn't like it, well, that doesn't fly.
I agree with you, but I don't think, we're not gonna gain anything butting heads with the town hall. We're here to do things for the townspeople
Absolutely.
and to move forward and get them done, and we need a plan and we need to do that.
If I wanted to start a business that is one of those new uses, then I wouldn't want to wait 6 months to see if it gets passed. That's,
So I guess, Butch, we haven't gotten any feedback
yeah. we
on
need to
what
get the
is
feedback.
wrong or what assumed is wrong, or I'm not saying you're incorrect. I'm somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it'd feel great to just say no. Is it in the best interest of the town to keep working on them? We've all put a lot of time into it and it got nowhere.
I'm just
So
saying we hold until we get an answer.
Hold on. I'm not saying we throw the whole bath, keep it and we'll keep it in our back pocket. But we just had 4 things that we can work on that there should be no reason not to put on the next warrant. And then if we find there's no reason that this last one shouldn't go on the warrant, that'll be then ready to go too. We have 3 months. So I would hope, the select board has had the original email from Heather for
We had 12 days now.
12
almost 2
days.
weeks.
So I'd expect they should have an answer rather quickly to us. By next meeting, I would expect we'd have some answers. That'd be my expectation from the select board. I don't know how long they would need to give us an answer of why they couldn't put something on the warrant.
So we're not stalling, we're not being stubborn, we're still moving forward with stuff that we should be doing.
If there's a list in 2 weeks of these are the 10 things that the lawyer flagged,
Right.
okay, that makes sense. I can live with that. But we haven't been given anything. So I
Well, we
think
did
it's.
get
I'm with
feedback
you,
from.
we need to know why. We need to know why.
So let's
It didn't
start
go
there.
forward.
Let's start there, and
Right.
we expect that. I think it's very reasonable to expect that within 2 weeks.
We did get feedback from SMPDC All
We
good.
spent over $6,000 with SMPDC to have them review this, and they get they did a thorough review, because they charge us by the hour for this, so they did a very thorough review. The select board was well aware that they were doing this review because they reviewed the invoice. Roger sent around an email that he thoroughly reviewed the invoice. So they're aware that it was reviewed by SMPDC. So I guess, how do we know what to fix? Or not even fix, how do we know what to do anything with
No,
it?
we don't until we get a reason.
Yeah,
Why
so
it didn't go, yeah.
So I think it'd be reasonable to ask for that within the next actually, ideally, within the next 7 days, so we all have time to review it for the next meeting. That would be a reasonable request from the select board.
Agreed. Do you want me to formally make that request?
Please. All right, and then we also have some other things that we just talked about that we're gonna put into a workshop to hopefully have ready for November. Some driveway and road subdivision and ordinance review to align those. Growth ordinance. And we also have a couple subdivisions coming up that are gonna take some of our time too. And we owe to the applicants to get those to us in a timely manner as well.
Well, we have to. I mean,
Correct.
We're legally
Yeah,
obligated.
we have
time
timeline
limits.
on
Yeah.
those, yeah.
Yep, so, I don't feel like we should, do anything in a negative fashion or out of spite or retaliation, but I think we don't have any answers right now. We don't have all the information. So, any other comments on ordinance review, planning, and updates? Hearing none, next item of business, public comment. Anybody on Zoom like to comment on anything from this evening? Hearing none. Plan for next meeting. New business, we are going to have a subdivision application.
It's a 24 lot subdivision. I'm using my outside voice because I want to ensure that members of the public hear that this is on the docket. I don't want anyone to be surprised by it.
So, just a quick review over this, just so you guys are aware. It's in front of you. It's just a 24 lot subdivision on Mansion Road, to be phased out in 3 phases. Everybody has plans in front of them. Please review them before next meeting. It is a larger subdivision, so there is plenty to go through.
So the next step on this is we have them in, we do a application completeness review and a sketch plan review, which is I don't even think we vote on a sketch plan, right? We just give them, we look at their plans, we identify anything that's concerning.
We should
But
vote.
that's when they come in here for a sketch plan.
Just
which
for
is what
sketch
they
plan.
need to do.
Yep,
Yeah, I think we should vote on the sketch plan complete and move on to the next step.
complete.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so
So from a procedural perspective, will we find it complete and then discuss it, or discuss it as we're finding it complete?
discuss it. So
Got it.
you're gonna
Got it. So the end is finding is a vote to find it complete.
the
Got it.
sketch plan.
Sketch plan.
Yeah.
No, application complete.
Both. Yeah. So for a sketch plan, the application needs to be complete. Go through, and then the first phase is sketch plan review.
At the
Sketch-
end of sketch plan review.
Sketch plan's the first thing they come in here with.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be this to be.
Yep.
Correct.
Uh,
In
They
subdivision.
go and do what we ask them to do, and they come back with an application process, and we find that complete.
So they do the application first. They don't do another application at preliminary. The application, we review it as part of the sketch plan review.
So currently, our conditional use permit process and subdivision process are different. At subdivision, applications due at time of sketch plan, and it has to be complete at that time.
Okay.
So that's the major.
It threw me
difference.
off as well.
Okay, this borders Waterboro
Yep, we've
with additional land in Waterboro
Yep.
and a road going up to the border.
we've asked our secretary to notify the
yeah.
Waterboro code enforcement and planning board.
And we will invite them, you know, they will be part of, so if, when we when we do site walk, which I think is required. So when we schedule the site walk, when we have public hearing, whether we have one or multiple, and we'll also, I mean, I'm happy to invite, their planning department or planning board, to our meetings if they would like to. We've done that before when, I think it was with Dayton, was it? When we had something that bordered Dayton, and it was more in Dayton, so we gave it up to Dayton to do, but they kept us in the loop.
Because another subdivision that's been approved and is being built, it comes off the Deerwater Road back into Hollis.
I think we were made aware of that at the time.
Okay.
There's been a few times since I've been on the board that cross-town developments have been happening. So, as far as new business, we have the 24-lot subdivision.
I have a question to keep in mind while I'm reviewing this. Would 24 lots affect the growth plan ordinance? If the growth plan cap, or if there's a cap of 30 new builds per year, is 24 taken up by something like this?
We don't have a growth ordinance in place now,
No,
so
I
this
know.
would be.
But if there was something,
Oh, okay.
I'm just in my mind while I'm reading through this, and this is a permit that
depends.
we're going to give them for next year, and next year we're going to
I
have
think it would depend on whether or not we included or excluded subdivisions.
We don't
Subdivision
currently,
can be approved, you approve the house lots.
Yep.
You're just not gonna give any building permit or growth permit on them until they fill the bill,
yeah, and that's
or
not,
whatever it
So
has to
like
be.
this one's
So it
three
could be
phases.
12 a year, not.
We could write the growth plan ordinance to give a certain number to subdivision
Differently than single
lots
family
versus,
home.
yes, I think so, right, Butch? We can separate that out, right?
Right, but there's spec permits,
Mm-hmm.
and you wanna build a house, so, you come with a plan. When the developer wants to build a house and sell it after it's built, that's spec. Okay, and there's so many of those allowed, so many others. Some for family members,
Yep, that's right.
residents of the town already,
Mhm.
and it's, it's all split up.
but we'll be talking about growth plan at a different time, so
Sure.
you can do
just
not,
something I wanted to keep in my mind while I was.
you just can't take that into account when you're looking at this subdivision.
Right.
Old business, I don't see any.
Well, it's gonna be a report, it's gonna be
Yes, Butch's
information
report.
about why our stuff didn't get on the warrant.
Yep.
Hopefully,
It's gonna come back, that would be old business. I would think.
hopefully that would be a select board. You know what? Let's put it on the agenda.
Let's do it.
Old business. Select board report.
Zoning.
Request a select board report for zoning ordinance changes not on June 10th, 2025 warrant.
Well, you can be
Zoning ordinance changes.
review the report that you got back or whatever.
Yep, I like it, Butch, thank you.
I feel like I had something.
And then, lastly, workshop additional ordinance review. Ordinance and we'll put that ordinance and regulation review as we're working on subdivision as well. So there is a difference.
Yep.
Perfect.
Good
So planning for next meeting, so no more planning, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
And the next meeting is
The
2 weeks?
next meeting
25th, I want to say?
is
It'll be a Wednesday again.
Are we gonna workshop?
25th.
June 25th, 2025 at 7 PM.
Are we gonna workshop tonight?
We have a workshop on our agenda.
So we're only gonna, okay, let's adjourn the meeting.
So all those in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Yes.
what would you say,
So-
Butch?
Where's our secretary?
She
Shut
had
up.
a personal conflict of
Okay,
schedule.
That's good.
She
So
was
all-
very apologetic.
I apologize. All those in favor, I didn't hear the votes.
Yeah, aye.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
All those opposed, hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you.